and I'm going to invite him. He's called Francis Mugai. Francis, I'm looking for you. Please show your face so that I can see where you are. And we can welcome him with some coffee, you know, the virtual clubs. How do you find the virtual clubs? Just go to you see there's like a button called reactions there. Then if you click on it, you will see you can give him a clap or a thumbs up or, you know, give him something. Francis, karibu sana.
Thank you very much, Eunice. I appreciate having me today. And thank you everyone for making time for this session. I know it's been a big conversation out in everywhere in this country. We've had a lot of conversations around etims, and therefore my business today is basically to shed light on what exactly is etims and how do we move then to compliance. So I'd like to share my screen. You can allow me to share my screen, Eunice? I think I can. You can see my screen, eh? Hello, Eunice.
Yes, we can, Francis. Yes.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
We
Thank you
can
very
see
much.
your screen. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. So, so our business for the day is, I promise you that at the end of this session, you will understand what is it. You'll also understand some of the effects that etim has on the Kenyan business environment. And you'll also get to understand how you can get to comply with etims and what are the various options available to you. And then I believe agenda number 4 is Eunice will help you understand how Nuru can benefit your business. So we dive right into it. So this is the elephant in the room, the conversation we are having today. So we are all aware that on the 26th of June last year, President Ruto signed the Finance Act 2023. He signed it on the 26th, and on the 27th, it had been gazetted, meaning it became law just 24 hours after it had left actually Parliament. Now, this law, the Finance Act 2023, it contains some of the most far-reaching tax reforms in Kenya, and I'll show you some of those. For example, one of the most impactful actions of Finance Act 2023 is that it amended Section 23 of the Income Tax Act. I promise you that is all the law we will read. So now by amending the Income Tax Act, what happened is that the law as it is today is that you are disallowed for claiming any expenses against your revenue if that expense has not been generated from teams. So what this means is traditionally we have said that revenue, all expenses that are incurred in a business, if they are wholly and fully incurred in generating revenue, then those expenses should be allowed. So practically, in practical terms, so if you're making bags as Taka and you have bought materials to make those bags and to sell those bags, then the materials you've bought, the labor you have used should be allowed, should be removed, should be deducted from the income you have gotten before you can arrive at profit before tax. Then you apply the tax. Now, Finance Act, then the Income Tax Act, now Section 23 says, hang on a bit, you will only be allowed to bring in expenses that are coming from a team's device. Now, this is really transformative in the way that we do business in the country, and primarily because the target, the bulk of the economy in terms of the business is the small businesses, the SMEs. And they are the hardest hit by this one change. And why is that so? Is because their supply chains are organized in such a way that on one hand, they are dealing on their on their top side, on their top line, they are dealing with corporates and organized businesses. But on their supply side, they are dealing with the informal segment. So if you are an avocado farmer, you are dealing with your client is an organized aggregator. Maybe you are selling your avocados to Kakuzi. But you're collecting these avocados from small farmers. So you're the middleman. So on one side, you have the informal segment, and on the other side, you have the formal segment. So SMEs have really found themselves in this quagmire. And that really is the elephant in the room. So the discussion then, therefore, that we're having today is just to understand what is this etims and how do we do about that imbalance in that whole, how do we get to remove the elephant from the room? But first things first. So etims, as I said, the law was signed in June of 2023, and KRA in December of 2023, precisely 27th, when people were out and merry and feeling good in the villages. KRA sent out a public notice that every eligible taxpayer must migrate to TIMS by the 31st of March. Now, that's a few days ago. So KRA had targeted that by the 31st, there will be at least 915,000 taxpayers coming on. Now, as of sunset on this 31st, KRA only managed to onboard just odd 200,000 taxpayers. That's a 22% success rate. And therefore, you can see the apathy and the cry on the street. It's actually even showing on how KRA performed on this one metric. So what are the issues? Well, of course, one of the big issues, as we have laid it out there, is the imbalance in that on one side, you really have to be compliant if you want to do business, especially with an organized segment. But the reality and the truth of our economy is that the bulk of it is driven by small traders or the informal segment, and they are not in the limelight. So, but what exactly is etims? So if we start with the basics. So etims, this is it's tax invoice management system. It was introduced by the Finance Act. And etims is basically the information technology that integrates your electronic tax register. So if you're using a POS, or you are a supermarket and you have your point of sale, or you are dealing with an ERP or an invoicing system, whatever platform that you're using to invoice, the idea with Teams is that it's the intermediary. It links with what is your local invoicing system that you're using, and then links that then with iTax. That's what eTeams is. It's basically the linking bit between your point of sale, how you sell, and if you're doing manually, then eTeams becomes the only point of sale, and iTax. So eTeams is basically that. It's an intermediary between your local system and iTax, which is KRA's primary tool management of tax. So what are the eTeams objectives? So in bringing out eTeams, what the government intended to do was to actually infuse efficiency and the effectiveness of tax administration through data triangulation. So what do we mean by data triangulation? One of the most common frauds we have had in Kenya, and this has happened especially for traders that are VAT registered, it's called the missing trader fraud. So we have, and unfortunately, it's unfortunate, we have a large body of traders who had registered previously with the order regime PIN numbers, where they were using to generate a lot of invoices, which then they would use in their businesses. But these were missing traders, so nobody had the PIN access. So it is like a server farm. What you call it was like a server of, or a body of very many ETR receipts being generated, and the people who are generating these things are not disclosing them. So KRA actually really wanted to step in, because this has been an ongoing fraud. Government calculates that every year they've been losing upward of at least 36 billion. So quite a huge hole. And if you want to see how big it is, it's that VAT as a tax category has always underperformed PAYE. Now, if you look at it critically, the formal segment or the people that are formally employed in this country are not more than 2 million people, the people that file PAYE, pay as you earn. However, every single Kenyan, 54, 55 million people, we all interact with VAT one way or another. But the returns for VAT have always been lower in terms of yield, how much money government makes, and because of this issue of missing trader fraud. So government really wanted to remove that by ensuring that they know who is selling, they know who is buying, and they have that information themselves. And therefore, that makes the tripartite. So it seems then primary objective is just to ensure that businesses are issuing valid tax invoices. And therefore, any item that is being allowed for as a tax expense is valid. So the whole objective about etims is basically to see loopholes in tax administration. That's the entire objective. Now, what is teams versus etims? I'm sure sometimes you hear teams, sometimes you hear etims. So etims is simply the software version where you are able to generate your valid invoices, valid tax invoices without spending money on a team's hardware. So previously what we had was that we would have ETR compliant machines that were ETR machines that were deep compliant, and this started sometimes in 2020. So now KRA then moved in to solve the issue, especially because of, first they wanted to get into a bigger bracket, enroll as many people as possible, and therefore there was need, therefore, to remove the need or to alleviate the need of people having the hardware. So eTeams, or the electronic version, is basically the software version, the available free software version that then ensures that the taxpayer doesn't have to spend money on the physical device. So in terms of the software, the back end of it, we are looking at the same. Okay. Is eTeams mandatory? So must you have it if you're in business? Must you or must you not? So now, Finance Act 2023, again, I told you this act is really transformative. It amended another law called the Tax Procedures Act, Section 23. Now, this law or this section now requires that any person who is carrying out a business in Kenya must issue a valid electronic tax invoice. And not just that must come through a system established by the KRA. So that's the law. So it has no distinction, because the way it's worded, it says everyone that is carrying out business. Now, if you look now at the Income Tax Act, what's the meaning of a person in business? A person in business means either you're a company, partnership, sole proprietor, association, even a resident association for those of you in the estates. You are a trust, even for those managing trust deeds. You are a person with an income tax obligation, such as monthly rental income, turnover tax, annual income tax. You are a person entirely, what it's just a blanket definition of if you are transacting any form of business, whether or not you are registered for VAT, then eTeams is mandatory for you. So there is no running away from it. As long as you are a person in business, and the definition of person in business, you'll find it in the Income Tax Act. Therefore, you are not exempted from the rules. You are not exempted from generating a valid electronic tax invoice using a system established by KRA. And as we have seen, the system established by KRA is eTeams. So then we go to, if then it's mandatory, what are the options? What can you do to be able to comply? So KRA has given several options. So there's eTeams Lite. This is a web version. This one, you can access it through your eCitizen account. And it's ideally meant for very small businesses with very minimal transactions. You are looking at people that likely would be having access to internet because it's on the web. So those will be most people actually. The bulk of the people as defined as people in business would likely lie in that category. Then you have eTeams Lite. This is a USSD format. You can get it on the shortcode *222#. It's a solution also for individuals and small sole proprietors. These will now solve the issues of what we're talking about, the really informal segment, people that don't have internet access. But mobile phone penetration, it's highest in Kenya, in all of Africa. This is why it's highest. So the idea then, therefore, is that nobody has an excuse. As long as you're doing some form of business, you are a rider, you are a mama mboga in the kiosks or in the markets, then you should be able to access the service or be able to generate your invoice, that triple hash. Then there's the online portal. This one is ideally meant for taxpayers who are in service sector exclusively. So they are not good supplied. So people like, say, engineers, lawyers, doctors, that category, professionals that do only exclusive services, that's the most ideal platform for them. Then there's etims client. This is a downloadable software. It's an exe file. So it's designed for taxpayers that have both goods and services. Of course, you would need to be connected to the internet. The whole idea here is, again, that KRA needs to have visibility on your inventories ledger. So it's also a requirement of law that if you're dealing with inventory, that then KRA has visibility over that. Again, it's just to ensure that you're not gaming the system in terms of what your inputs, outputs are. Then there's the virtual sales control unit. This is catering to taxpayers with extensive transactions or bulk invoicing. These are really large taxpayers. And the online sales control unit, also ideal for taxpayers using online invoicing system, people who would want to link up with their own internal ERPs. So depending on where you are in the definition of person in business, then you would really look to see which of these is an appropriate solution for yourself. So what Carrie here has done is to provide as many options as possible, tailor-made for specific segments of the economy, so that everybody then has something that fits their needs. Now, having said that, and seeing the challenge of what the law says and that everybody must comply, and seeing all those demands. So what should you do as a business person? So we're just getting now to the rear end. What do you do now? So first thing is understand the law. So if you're trading in some specific goods or services, you may be exempted from the requirements of etims. The exemption list is in Section 23A of the Tax Procedures Act. For example, by way of mentioning, not exhaustively at all, if you're dealing, for example, with airline tickets, you would be exempt. If you are dealing with the importation of goods, so that then ideally you are importing goods into the country using the East African Customs Management Act, the goods then that you are bringing in would be allowed, so they will be exempted. If you're buying services online from a digital supplier who has no tax residence or branch in Kenya, say, for example, you're buying Zoom, or you're buying G Suite, or Microsoft Office, things like those. So those expenses would be allowed because they are on the exemption list. So it would be good that you understand the law, so that then you know what kind of goods am I trading with, and are they exempted? So can I continue with what I'm doing? So the complete listing of those, you'll find them on the exemption list, Tax Procedures Act. The second thing is adaptation. You need to take the precautionary measures and to actually just reflect on how is your procurement supply chain at the moment. Because the risk is actually on you, and especially if on one side you have the informal segment, and on the other side then you are dealing with the formal corporates. So you would be at a disadvantage if you continue working with the same supply chain. So it's important that you actually vet how your procurement supply chain looks, and start filtering, so that then you're dealing with entities that are compliant, or business people that are compliant. Another thing that you could do is you could apply for something called reverse invoicing. Now, it's a new initiative. It's currently being rolled out on case-by-case basis. What this means is, for example, if you are, let me give you the current example that is currently happening. If you look at the sugar millers, they are dealing with a lot of many small-scale farmers. These farmers are not registered for VAT, for TIMS. So there's obviously a challenge because then they are not compliant. So you as the aggregator, as the miller in this case, they're doing is do reverse invoicing. You invoice on behalf of this body of small scale people. So at the moment, this one is targeting aggregators and brokers. So if you're dealing especially with farm produce, that may be a good option for yourself. You will need to consider it and engage KRA. Now, you should also be alert. This is the next thing. So KRA is also trying to expand how they can reach to the informal segment. As you've seen, the statistics really are very grim. It's only 22% of Kenyans that responded to that. So what KRA then is trying to do is come back with innovative ways of how they can get people into the net. And one of the ways, for example, that they are considering is a buyer-initiated etims. This is where, if you're dealing with the informal segment, the person you are dealing with surrenders their right to create an invoice, and you create it for them as an unregistered trader. So it's still not yet live, but it's likely to come out because of the kind of pressure that we're seeing. It's likely to come out soon. I don't know when. I don't speak for KRA, but it's important that you keep yourself alert. And the final thing I would advise everybody is get a consultant. Tax is getting increasingly complicated. So it would be good. It's important that you have somebody that is able to work with you and give you support as you may need to handhold you as you progress on your compliance journey. I think that would be it for me. I'd been given 15 minutes. I'm not sure, Eunice, how many I did.
You're doing very, very well. And there are a lot of questions on the chat, and I will ask Watiri to read them.
Thank you, Eunice. We have a question, and thank you, Francis, for your time and the beautiful presentation. We have a question from Mary F., who says, question, sir, what about the non-invoiced tea and flowers and gazzetti from the roadside mama and guy? We exchange documents that are handwritten summary and receipt after paying. We cannot have Kina Java style invoiced tea. What do we do?
Okay, maybe you can take a few and then.
Okay, the next question is, I don't know that is a question or a comment from Taaka Hatego. I heard about the reverse invoicing and is the way to go for difficult people who don't want to register. Well, I see that sounds like a loophole, but hey. There's also Martin Njenga. We run an e-commerce business where we manage clients online via our website and they generate invoices for our customers. Can we, as a business, use etims to produce invoices from a single platform? I will read that again. We run an e-commerce business where we manage clients online via our website and they generate invoices for their customers. Can we, as a business, use etims to produce invoices from a single platform? I will take one. Would you like to take that? And then we can go on.
Yeah, before they pile up, yeah, I think
All right.
that's okay.
Thank you.
So
Thank
I
you.
think
Please keep your questions coming.
Yeah, so the first question from Mary about we can't have Java style engagement with everyone. I think KRA appreciates that, as I have already indicated. So they are considering what would be an easier way to help people comply. And already you can see there is the aggregator part, but there is also the buyer-initiated invoice. Now, whereas this hasn't come out at the moment, the challenges, of course, will be how you protect the person that is the buyer, because the buyer is actually the one that is going to be at risk because they will not their expense may not be allowed if it is not legit, if it's not valid. And the only way to make sure it's valid and legit is that the person that is doing the transaction offers or actually gives you their PIN number. Now, I see that as a huge challenge. I don't know how that will be overcome. I don't know whether when the innovation is done that we're going to have some regulation probably for transactions below a certain threshold. Didi, at this point, I don't know. But what I do know is that if, again, you are looking at supply chains that are going to support your business, because, again, you really need to look at procurement as a value-adding function in your business. It is not that you can procure from anywhere. And with the compliance risks so high, I would really advise that you then look at who are you buying from, so that then if it's the matters of receipts, it may actually require change in culture. So I have seen, for example, these days, everybody has their PIN number on the phone every time you go to a petrol station, you show it, so that you can get it registered on the device. So we may have some difficulties, yes, in accepting that times have changed, but indeed we just have to adapt, and that's the key word, that we have to adapt because this is a new reality. So then the second question was from Taka. She said she has heard about reverse invoicing and she's happy with it. Yes, at the current phase where we are at, it's at the moment being administered only for aggregators and large aggregators and brokers. So, but clearly it will come to a level where we are able to access it even as smaller SMEs. But yes, it is a fantastic innovation that KRA has brought in to rein in on errant taxpayers. And the final one from Martin about e-commerce and the fact that you're managing various taxpayers and you're asking whether you can issue your etims from one point. So here's what you need to know: that first, taxpayers are recognized at KRA on their own individually, and the identification is the PIN. And therefore, because the management of the system is that it is identifying one PIN for one taxpayer, I don't see it being practical from the revenue side that they can have a database which allows different points to have, or one single point to have different PIN numbers. But then again, it could be an integration issue. It could be maybe something that you need to speak to an IT person to just look at how your database is organized. But in terms of how data must be transmitted, it is one taxpayer, one PIN number. It cannot be taxpayer sharing the same PIN number. Otherwise, somebody will get shortchanged. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Francis. I will take another question there's a question here from Dorothy. What about expenses like transport, casual labor? What about expenses like transport, casual labor? Vincent, what's the process of onboarding? I am not sure whether this is onboarding, what kind of onboarding. Maybe, Vincent, you could give us more information on that. I will also look at Martin, we've answered. There is Mary F. again. Those eTeam options mean that every business must have an accountant now? Or does that mean that every business must have an accountant? Not just the accountant who comes monthly, like most SMEs, but how will micro businesses like sellers of njugus comply, or other types of businesses like digital and content creators who are solo businesses? Now accountants have assured jobs in Kenya. I see there's some opportunity there for accountants, but she comments that this is very serious stuff and the talk should have come earlier. Very good. Auditors, accountants, and such have jobs in Kenya. So at least etims is creating job opportunities. There is, I think, still from Mary, missing trader. Is that what you said? There's a comment you had, I think, missing trader. Please explain again what this is. Seems to be the reason we are now having this etims business with KRA. How are other countries finding this missing trader without the pressure of their KRA? And everywhere it is the same. Thank you.
Okay. So I'll start with the casuals and the transport. Transport is not among the exempted items. So it means therefore then if you have to spend some money in a matatu or in a taxi, and you have made the payment, except you can prove that this taxi is operated by a service provider that has no tax residency branch in Kenya, then that may be allowed. So if you can prove, I don't know, but I could check that Uber doesn't have a tax residency branch in Kenya, then you could claim your invoices. You could claim your expenses so that you say, I took this taxi to go and drop my bags at a client premises, and therefore this expense is wholly and fully incurred for earning the income. Now, in terms of other transport, if you're using matatu, you have hired somebody's car. Unfortunately, no. Actually, 2 days or 2 days ago, 2 or 3 days ago, there was a meeting between the industry leaders in the matatu segment and Treasury. And I know they didn't issue a press statement, but people in the know indicated that the meeting was about how to achieve cashless in matatu's sector. So clearly government is very interested in it. So, but at the moment, no. So if you're using a matatu to go and do your transportation, drop your things, then you will not be allowed that expense as the rules are right now. Now, somebody has asked about labor. Now, if you look at the exemption list, part of the items that are exempted is salaries or wages. But then you have to go forward. You really have to examine when people talk about casual labor in this country, it's really been overexploited. Now, there are rules in the Labor Act about who a casual laborer is. And therefore, you would need to check out on that. But if it is casual labor, that will get exempted. But as long as you can also demonstrate that there is PAYE that is being paid, or at least you have filed your returns to indicate that you have casual labor. So it's important that you know that. Then somebody said about every business now will likely have an accountant. Not necessarily. I believe everybody at every stage in a business life, there's always a solution that can cater for it. So Kenyans are not innovative. I believe that there will be fractional service providers that can be able to step in and give requisite advice at that level and within the budget for those organizations. I believe at every level that the economy is vibrant enough to be able to create an innovation to address a rising need. So it may not necessarily be that businesses now have to hire full-time accountants. I don't see that happening. And then somebody else asked, what is this missing trader thing? Missing trader is a topic for 2 hours. But simply what it is that we have fraudulent people in the system who have gamed it. One of the reasons, for example, in this country, it is very hard to get a tax refund. In fact, the last time, KRA issued a public notice that if you had a refund of any nature, and it was actually even codified in law, that you wouldn't get a cash refund. That what would happen, however, is that the credit that you have, first they have to do an audit. So it's very rigorous for them even to admit that they have a liability. First, they have to do an audit. After the audit has been confirmed, and indeed it is true that they have your credit, that credit will be used to offset your other tax lines. So if your credit, for example, arose in VAT, so that you had bought more than you have sold, and therefore you're telling KRA, refund me for the additional input tax. Instead of them giving you the money, first they'll do an audit to confirm that what you're claiming is true. And then additionally, then they'll go on to say, if indeed it is true that they are owing you a credit, then that credit will be used to offset your future tax liability in the same tax line. So maybe future tax liabilities in VAT, or if not that, a future tax liability in any other tax line. So they have made it almost, it's more difficult than putting a get money out of government. Why is that so? Because the days when we were doing manual VAT returns, there was a time VAT 3 before iTax came in, 2015, 2013, those days. People made a lot of claims, government has a lot of liabilities, and these people cannot be found. We don't know who they are, but you have their invoices there, and it's a legit claim because that was the law then. Now, of course, then government has to come back with an innovation. So, and they brought in the ETR. Now, even with the ETR, we have had unscrupulous people having ETRs claiming things, and those ETRs are not filing, but you're buying from them. So you have, for example, somebody has a legit business, it has the ETR he's remit to his customers, and then he has another ETR where he's generating that he has bought. But the secondary ETR, there is no declaration for it. So it's opaque in law. Now that's what you call the missing trader. Because primarily what it is being used to do is to reduce the liability of the main business. Now that is really widespread. So that is only one trick, but there are several other tricks around missing trader. And how the government is reacting is to address the issue. And we are not alone in this. There are many other countries that are in the same position. Countries now are more open about sharing information. There's best practice that is the OECD practice. And what countries have over time agreed is an area of actions where there is even information sharing so that tax administration across the globe can continuously improve. But more specific even to our case, it is that we are looking at the moment, our tax to GDP ratio is 15%. That is what it was the last time I checked, which is like the data we have about a year ago, 15% for the year 2023. Now, if you look at what it was just before Kibaki left office, it was at 18%. So you can see that our tax collection has actually gone down. Now, government plans to bring that up to 25%. So increasingly, these measures that you are seeing are to address a gap in administration so that government is able to create a bigger cake and to be able to cut a bigger share out of that. So the foot is on the gas and it's not going to relent. That's what I would say. So it's better that instead of just we lament, it's better we just find out how do we adapt, how do we understand the law so that we can develop tax plans that are within the law, and more specifically then how do we adapt so that we remain compliant. It's very important. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Francis. I will just take maybe one more question. There's a question from Mary again, what does Nuru do? Very valid question. Eunice is going to tackle that as soon as we're done with this session. For companies that sell services online and are subject to withholding tax, how does etims come into play? For companies that sell services online and are subject to withholding tax, how does etims come into play? And one last one, there is one about consultancy. Aizo says, I am Isaiah Odwar. Hi, Isaiah. I offer consultancy services. I always withhold 5% after getting paid and then remit the same to KRA. I generated an invoice yesterday on etims, but it only had provision for me to enter the gross pay. This is what I generated on the invoice. Is this okay? It shows 0 as the tax. I'll repeat that. I offer consultancy services. I always withhold 5% after getting paid and then remit the same to KRA. I generated an invoice yesterday on etims, but it only had provision for me to enter the gross pay. This is what I generated on the invoice. Is this okay? It shows 0 as tax.
Okay. Thank you, Achille. So somebody asked if you are generating services or you are giving and services are already subject to withholding tax and you have met your withholding tax obligation, do you still need teams? Absolutely you do, because the definition of who requires to have team is everybody in business. So whereas you are generating this invoice, actually the person that is going to be on the receiving end is the person that you're serving, because for them, it is an expense to their business. So if you give a service, the other person then has to claim it as an expense on their side. So whereas you have withheld, so because the other person then is going to withhold and remit, it's not you that is withholding, it's the other party that is going to withhold and remit. But for them, that expense is not going to be valid for their income tax allowance, principally because it has not come from etims. That's the risk. So you would need then to comply to ensure that then your customer is protected and that you keep them. Because what is going to happen is that the customer is going to figure out that they are not able to claim expenses for invoices coming from your end, and therefore they may likely then go for another option in the market. I'm sure we all have competitors. You don't want that happening. So the best thing is to look at your specific situation. Then somebody else asked about what they did with etims. I'm not very sure about that. Maybe whatever is something we can take offline. I would really want to understand the specifics.
Yes.
Okay,
we are going to share our email address, and we can take the questions offline, and we are happy to engage. Eunice? Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you so much, Francis Mugai and Dr. Watere, for that wonderful session. And mine is, I'll begin with a question. I know you all have many questions, but I need to ask you, how many of you, if you have found this session helpful, please raise your hand if you have found the session very helpful. Let me see. Let me see how many people found it useful. Awesome. Quite a number. Then I want to ask another one. You can lower your hand now. I want to ask another question. How many of you would want to be associated with, meeting such business people who are sharing such valuable information, at least either on a weekly basis or bi-weekly basis, just to hear what can I do with my business, sharing the challenges we are facing and addressing them through expert advice. How many of you would love that? Before I introduce you. Okay, let me see that. Awesome. Great. And quite a number of people are interested in that. I'm going to introduce Nuru. Somebody asked, what does Nuru do? And this is what Nuru does. I'm about to introduce Nuru right away. You can see my screen? Yeah, Nuru, and I'll give you a story even as I introduce this. We were struggling, just like every other entrepreneur struggles in this market. We all know, ukweli wa mambo ni soko inachafuka saa zingine, like Kenya, it's very difficult for us entrepreneurs to thrive, but we have to thrive anyway. So what happened is that 6 of us came together, and the most difficult thing was, how do we thrive in business in this market? And the 6 of us started a network platform for high growth SME owners. Now, this is subscription-based, invite-only network, and each applicant is interviewed and highly vetted. It's actually one of us who called. Everybody who joined was vetted highly, including coming to see my, my office to see whether I'm real and whether I'm giving proper services. And what we do is that we empower highly engaged SMEs owners with comprehensive business support service. So how do you benefit from Nuru? You have all said you would want to have such forums whereby you can exchange ideas, and information is power. And information is so powerful that even the Bible says that my people perish because of lack of knowledge. And if you don't know how to deal with etims, you will perish because KRA will be on your neck. They will come knocking. And We all know that story, how it. So how does Nuru help you? And yeah. So this network, why we came together, 6 of us, was number one, to exchange referrals, to be able to share, to open our networks to each other. This has been about how many months? Almost 10 months of meeting together, 6 of us, every week. And when we meet, we discuss the challenges we are facing in each of our businesses. We get a lot of free things because we are members, because like someone like Francis is a member of this network, and therefore all of us, our businesses are etims compliant because of, okay? So first, we exchange referrals. So I'm able to open the network for Francis, and Wateri is able to open her networks to me, and we help each other grow. And the other thing that we do is complimentary consulting session with the panel of experts. So because we are all different, for example, I am in sales. I'm an expert in sales. I help businesses grow 20 times in 3 to 5 years. Dr. Wateri is in marketing and research. And we have Francis, who is in finance and tax expertise. We have Alex, who is in legal. He is a lawyer. And we have a HR and an IT person in this team. So when we meet, we share each other's business challenges, and then we get support. And the other thing that we offer is the entrepreneurial training, like what you have just heard, where we pick the issues that majority of the members are having, and one of our members trains us on on their expertise in that subject. And the other thing that we get, because we are members, I can be able to get, for example, now, since we met, Francis is now our tax and audit consultant, tax and auditor in our company. Why? Be able to help SMEs raise funds. Why? Because the other thing, as much as we can get networks, we can open markets, we can get the knowledge, we can get the fellowship like the one we have. Funding still is a challenge. So in future, we'll be looking at that. So what is my invitation for you tonight? Is that we normally pay 25,000 annual membership fee to be able to get the items that I've mentioned. But for those who have joined today's webinar, because we are just 6 of us, I can promise that we'll vet you, because we need to understand you want to be in a fellowship of people who are, clean, people who are honest, people who are integrity, people who are giving the services that they say they will offer at the price that they say they offer. So if you express your interest between now and April 30th, we will offer it at 20,000, the membership. Now, what does that mean? That you'll be able to access the expert, and you will also join as an expert. So we'll be able to share the expertise among each other. And if you're trading, then we're able to open up our networks to be able to open markets, to help you open markets. So that's our offer tonight. And I want to ask another question. How many are willing to have the vetting team visit them in the next 1 week? Just raise your hand or put it in the chat. And I will also ask Wateri, for those who may fear to raise their hand, Wateri, you could share the form for those who would like to join, to register in that form. As I said, we are not going to take your money until the vetting process has been done, until we are all in agreement that you're going to add value to the network and you're able to add value to you. All right? So I can see Tabitha has raised her hand. Anyone else? Anyone else? And these are our contacts in case you want to contact us. Oops. I need the phone number. Sorry about that. Wateri, you could put the phone number in the chat. And I can quickly ask the members of Nuru, the current members of Nuru, to just show your face. I will not embarrass you. I will just introduce you. Just show your face so that people can see who they are coming to join. Who is this person that you're going to be doing business with? And we're looking at meeting once a week for 2 hours to be able to discuss each other's business and to support one another in the areas that we can. So I will ask Lillian, please introduce yourself. Francis has already done that. Francis, did you introduce yourself or you just train? The members who are here, please. Sorry to ambush you. I didn't prepare you. Because Tabitha need to see who are you joining? Yeah. Lillian, just introduce yourself quickly and your expertise.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for showing up. I've learned quite a bit. I'm going to make section 23A my friend. And I don't know whether I want to be counted as as one of the missing traders. So my name is Lillian. I am the HR person at Nuru. Yes, and as Eunice has said, welcome with all your questions and queries. I've had people asking about casuals. You need to know who the definition of a casual is so that you know whether that is an expensable expense. So please, yes, join Nuru. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Lillian, for that. Anyone else who is in the room? Let me ask Watiri to introduce herself. I know she took the questions, but she didn't. She's Dr. Watiri. She has studied marketing up to doctorship.
Thank you, Eunice. Thank you very much. And hi, everyone. My name is Dr. Watiri Kanyutu, and I am the marketing and research consultant. And something that Eunice did not tell you or mention about how the genesis of Nuru is, which I'm sure we all go through, is the loneliness and the frustration that comes with running our own businesses. That really was one of the genesis. And it's been an amazing journey, just knowing that you're never alone in that kind of frustration. So I'm looking forward to hanging out with people. Asante sana, Eunice.
All right, thank you so much, Watiri. I think the others are not in a position to speak, but clearly that's the kind of team you're going to meet. And it's a lot of, what are they called? The freebies that are very helpful to each one of us. Personally, I've really benefited for the last 10 months. And we said, let's open it up so that we can be more people. We can warm the house. We can, kill the loneliness of entrepreneurship. I can see there's a question from Vincent. What specific industry are we targeting? We have no specific industry. We want the entrepreneur to come as they are. So long as we can add value to your business and you see value in joining the network, you're welcome. Okay. So Watiri, I don't know whether you've shared the form and
yes.
You have?
Form that details there, our website, our email address. Feel free to contact us.
Great. And now I want to welcome comments, complaints, compliments from the audience. Let's hear. As it's 4 minutes past the hour, I promise we'll only take 2 more minutes so that we hear your comments and, what is your takeout? Is there, what you think about a network of entrepreneurs? And I know there are many other networks. And why Nuru is different is that it's not just about referrals, it's a combination of, it's actually, we've picked all the networks and put them into one so that you can get a one-stop shop in one network. All right, Mary, thank you. I can see Mary has a comment. Please keep them coming. Thank you for explaining Nuru. the Nuru Network membership is for how long? It's annual, so you renew annually, of course, based on vetting, and of course, you also evaluate whether it is added value, but I believe it is going to add a lot of value to all of you. Taka says, great informative session. The tax session should have been longer. True. We will have many more. We will let you know. We'll have many other sessions. And actually, if you have a suggestion for a topic, you can just share in the chat. And now with that, I would like to bring this meeting to a close. You can share your comment as you leave, and have a good night. See you when you, we'll keep having this engagement. So we're not going anywhere. We'll be adding value to other people, and also, and more so, the tight-knit membership that we are going to build. All right. Thank you. Have a good night.